There's a danger that the vacuum of meaning created by science will be filled by old or new dogmatic spiritual or religious systems. If systems of intolerance fill this vacuum, science as we know it may end. If science is to survive, spiritualities compatible with the rational worldview of science will have to answer the questions that science cannot answer alone. How should I live? What is ultimately real? What is my purpose in life? Together with science, rational spiritual movements can obviate the dangers of a fundamentalist backlash from either new or old myth-based dogmas. Note, I use the word spirituality here to mean a framework for answering life's deepest questions, not because I believe in spirits of any kind. Note that the root of the word is Latin, spiritus, concerning the breath. Thus, I take this word to concern that which inspires a life, even though in the absence of any clear evidence for such, I don't accept the existence of a domain of spirits. Of course, I may be wrong about that. As a scientist, I'm always open to evidence that goes against my models. There have been many attempts to fill the vacuum of meaning and values left by Christianity's decline since the Renaissance, and especially since the Enlightenment's Age of Reason. Many new religions have appeared. Science, however, poses the same threat to new theistic religions as it does to old ones. Thus, the most influential philosophical and social movements aimed at providing meaning in the modern era have not attempted to solve the problem of how to live theistically. Let's now consider a few of the non-theistic or even atheistic attempts to fill the vacuum of meaning inadvertently created by science. Karl Marx maintained that the essence of being human is the ability to create things from nature that satisfy material needs. Since humans attain meaningful lives only through society, he argued, all should share in the rewards of the species' labors to create. This ideal situation is not realized when owners exploit workers. Marx maintained that capitalism dehumanizes workers by turning them into commodities, thereby creating the antagonisms that will eventually overthrow it. Only through the unfolding of successive class struggles will a classless society emerge where workers receive just compensation for their labors. In this communal world of worker owners, each person will contribute what he or she can and be provided for as needed. This vision of a godless paradise wrought by human work nearly replaced theism in half the world in the 20th century.
Demonstrators tossed firebombs on armored personnel carriers and tanks as they rumbled into the square early Sunday morning. But it was impossible to stop the advance, and eventually the students were forced to evacuate. Soldiers fired automatic weapons into crowds of civilians, and the casualties were staggering. The Chinese Red Cross says at least 2,600 people were killed. The students claim thousands of others were wounded. There has been no official casualty announcement from the Chinese government.
And please bear in mind, just because Marxism has failed as an economic program does not mean that its criticisms of capitalism are entirely wrong, or that capitalism as a system is entirely positive. Another modern attempt to fill the vacuum of meaning created by science was existentialism. This movement brought into sharp focus the dilemma posed by the indifference of the universe to the individual. Sartre argued that humans are condemned to act freely without the objective guidance of God's commandments. In such a world, no rule of general morality can show you what you ought to do. According to the existentialist, a meaningful life begins with the prospect of self-annihilation. Once you have chosen life over death as the most fundamental act of your free will, you're left with the colossal project of creating your own meanings. It's as if you are to live life as a novel where you are your own author, protagonist, and in the end, your primary reader. Will you be an authentic hero in your life story or not? A grim attempt to fill the vacuum of meaning was Nazism. Yes, even Nazism can be seen as an attempt to fill the spiritual vacuum. Its goal was to create an earthly paradise occupied by superhumans. More than fascism, it was an anti-rationalist and methodical attempt to create an organized religion based on the superiority of a master race. A movement that's alive and well in its attempts to fill the vacuum of meaning created by science is humanism. This movement, sometimes called secular humanism, lauds the powers and virtues of human life in this world. It effectively began in the Renaissance and has since taken many forms. Secular humanism, like Marxism, existentialism, and Nazism, sought to transcend or replace theistic religion by placing ideal humans at the center of the vacuum of meaning. Secular humanists are committed to a global society based on reason, justice, tolerance, and respect. They emphasize our common humanity and encourage questioning of any authority that attempts to supersede personal conscience. In America, the various social movements that came to a head in the 1960s were aimed at rectifying the inequities of a society based on patriarchal and racist values. In one sense, the civil rights struggles are only the most recent in a centuries-old war of cultures, the main antagonists of which have been religious culture and the culture of reason. The excesses of the 60s have incurred today's backlash from the churches in the form of burgeoning fundamentalism and the religious right. However, at least as many people have become adherents of New Age mysticism since the 1960s as have become fundamentalists. Instead of trying to reinstall the Christian God, the New Age mystics fill the vacuum created by the decline of Christianity with supernatural forces and beings. According to research done by social psychologist Raymond Eve, America today comprises three primary cultural groups: creationists, about 40%, New Age adherents, about 25%, and then believers in science, about 35%. The first two groups agree only that the materialistic worldview of science is wrong. All these movements have occurred in reaction to and against a backdrop of nihilism, which makes no attempt to fill the vacuum of meaning and values. It dwells upon the meaninglessness of human life and finds expression in despair and its symptoms, whether mass killing, depression, escapist drug use, obsessions with death, sex, suicide, violence, and much else that is symptomatic of our times.